Hello and welcome to OPhiA Resources for Chapters. The purpose of this time together is to review all of the various resources that are available to officers and members of the sorority. So most of the resources that we're going to talk about fall into one of the following categories: operational, financial, leadership and training, service, traditions, and communications. So let's jump into operational resources. The first operational resource that we make available to all members is OPA Portal. OPA Portal is our membership database where you find tons of information. So all of the organization's governing documents like the National Constitution and Bylaws, the standard operating procedures, the national policies, all of that can be found on OPA Portal by any member. It's also the place that you're going to hear over and over and over in this presentation and throughout the Officer Leadership Academy of what you need to utilize and where you can find things. So it's really, really, really important as an officer to familiarize yourself with OPA Portal. There are how-to videos that walk you through some of the main functions of OPA Portal. And then Greek Track, which is the company that runs OPA Portal, offers training sessions. I think they are every other week. They cover a different topic every time. They usually start at the beginning of the semester, like in mid to late August, and they will pop up on your officer landing page. So when you log in, you should see them on the right-hand side in a little box. So pay attention to that. Sign up for them. I think you get the recording if you sign up for them and you're unable to attend. So that's a great resource to use, is those training sessions held by Greek Track. Another operational resource is OPA 101. We are going to have a whole training during this weekend on the Officer Leadership Academy about OPA 101, how to facilitate it, how to use it, all of that. You will get some information on why we made it into a course on OPA Portal. But the short version is just to standardize it and allow our new member classes to spend less time on in-person OPA 101 education and more time on serving and building bonds of sisterhood. So Chapter Management 101, this is a presentation, a training presentation that was created by the chapter support team a couple of years ago. It reviews the basic information for your chapter functions, your chapter requirements. So if you're interested in getting back to the basics for managing your chapter, please reach out to your chapter health contact. That's your chapter health specialist. If you are not assigned one of those, then it is Taylor. The National Constitution and Bylaws are the governing documents of our sorority, and they really provide a framework for how we operate the organization. So many times chapters or officers come to me or Taylor or their chapter health specialist and they have a question, and it can be answered by reviewing the Constitution and Bylaws. So if you ever have a question, you're like, here's some examples. So when is a member allowed to take LOA? That question can be answered in the National Constitution and Bylaws, so please review that. If you have questions about member disassociation, all of that can be answered in the Constitution and Bylaws. If you have any questions about member requirements or chapter requirements or the types of membership, literally, I think probably like 85-90% of questions can be answered in the Constitution and Bylaws. So of course, it's not the end all be all. There's still some gray space, and you may review the Constitution and Bylaws and find an answer, but it may lead you to another question that isn't answered, and that's totally fine. The standard operating procedures are a great next step, or the national policies. And as always, we are here to answer questions for you. The purpose of this presentation is to equip you with the resources that you need and tell you where to find them so that you can do the research for yourself and that you're not relying on a response from someone else. So the National Constitution and Bylaws is on OPA Portal. The standard operating procedures, we often call them SOPs. They stand apart from the National Constitution and Bylaws, but they support the information in them. So an example is there's some information in the Constitution and Bylaws about district summit, but it directs you to a standard operating procedure to get all of the most up-to-date guidelines for hosting a summit. So there is a district summit planning procedure, and that's what you would need to review for the additional details. So going back to the previous slide, if you have questions about something, you look in the Constitution. If you had questions about Summit, you would read about it and you would see there's more information in the standard operating procedures, and then you can go find the standard operating procedure. So all SOPs are on OPA portal under national operations, under files, national operations. Some other things like a dues waiver procedure, the organizational structure, selective recruitment procedure. I think there's about 35 of them. There are a lot, and a lot of really valuable information. So all national policies recently were removed from the Constitution. There were only 3 in the Constitution. So we took those out after legislation passed, allowing us to do that at convention. And they can all be found on OPA portal under files, national operations. I think it goes without saying that policies impact chapters, they impact members. They're really, really important. All members can access these files on OPA portal, but it's really important that you, as chapter officers, encourage your members to review the national policies at the beginning of each semester, or maybe you take a few minutes in your first chapter meeting of the semester and you review what the national policies are and where they can be found. Another operational resource is the Survival Guide for Small Chapters. This is a new resource that we introduced, I think, in fall 2021. We're starting to recognize that our smaller chapters that we often label endangered or at risk need some more assistance. Different assistance from our other chapters. They need information on membership retention, really specific information on ways to make recruitment successful, and information on how to track the history of the chapter and store it to pass it on to the next officers. So we created this survival guide and have heard a lot of great feedback from it. And all of our endangered chapters have been using it and reporting really great success. Often when chapters come to me or Taylor with questions or concerns, I feel like they could really get the resources and support they need from this guide. So please use this. It is on OPA portal under files. That's basically where everything is. It's definitely a trend. And then your chapter health contact, if you have a chapter health specialist or if you contact Taylor, we can get you additional support through this and help you go through every step of it. And the last big operational resource is parliamentary procedure. We are going to talk about that in the president breakout session during the Officer Leadership Academy. But I do just want to point that out here. It's obviously really hard to make decisions at meetings, especially when you have a lot of people in your chapter. So we do recommend that all chapters adopt some type of parliamentary procedure for your meetings. And we do provide some resources and trainings on this. So we have a Robert's Rules of Order training presentation. We have a little guide that highlights the main principles of Robert's Rules. We have a little one-page cheat sheet that lists the common motions for Robert's Rules. And then we also have sample rules of the day. So we also have people on the chapter health team who are well versed in parliamentary procedure and would be happy to assist chapters in adapting and adopting parliamentary procedure for your chapter meetings. It's just really helpful to have a structured way to run your meetings. Okay, let's talk about financial resources. I am going to try to cover all the high level things. If you are a chapter treasurer, we will have more detailed training information on many of the things that will be covered here. There is going to be a whole presentation on dues waivers this weekend during Officer Leadership Academy. So hold off on that. If you have more questions, please watch the dues waiver procedure presentation. And in terms of budgeting, and banking best practices, we do have a little guide, but there's also going to be a presentation on that. So I just want to give that caveat here at the beginning. If you are watching this and you are at financial resources and at the end of this, you feel that you did not get everything you need, please seek out additional resources first. So let's talk about dues waivers. The national organization does offer dues waivers to members who receive a local dues waiver and submit a complete application and recommendation form. So the application and recommendation form are one and the same. The documents are collated on DocuSign. So if a member initiates the application, it will automatically initiate the recommendation form as well. The following dues and fees are eligible for a waiver: active member dues, and new member activation fees. And dues waivers are limited to a maximum of 4 semesters for each member. So we just want to make sure we communicate this over and over again to our members so that they understand that dues waivers are limited and they cannot receive a national dues waiver every semester. I also want to acknowledge that national dues are often way less than chapter dues, than local dues. I think there are maybe a handful of chapters that charge less than the national dues currently for local dues. So if members are struggling and receive a local dues waiver, but they have met their maximum national dues waivers, we do offer payment plans where they can pay it in 3 installments. Recruitment assistance. We are happy to offer recruitment assistance to chapters that are in need. There are costs associated with recruitment, as you all know. Often there's food, there's supplies, decorations, service project supplies. There can be any number of things that chapters need to cover for recruitment. And we recognize that for some chapters, this can really be a burden to the success of their recruitment if they are a small chapter or they're struggling or they're low on funds. So we are happy to offer recruitment assistance to chapters that do need it. This year, the budget for this is $1,200. It is a decrease from previous years because I think in the last 4 semesters, we've had no chapters apply for recruitment assistance. We recently updated the standard operating procedure for recruitment assistance to make it more streamlined and I would say easier to get assistance. In the past, there was a lot of paperwork associated and a very big approvals process. And so we're trying to remove the barriers to accessing this funding. Fundraising is hard. We just want to acknowledge that. I see that some chapters on their annual report have really successful fundraising. Some of our chapters are really successful in fundraising for others and other organizations, but fundraising for Omega Phi Alpha seems to be hard. So we have recently created a comprehensive manual. It has guidelines, considerations to make, like legal implications, and then planning tips, like how do you even plan a fundraiser? What do you need to consider when you're planning? You can see on the screen that this is a planning page and it's all about knowing your customer, targeting the right people for your fundraising, like how much are you trying to raise? Yeah, really considering all aspects of fundraising. The National Constitution does say that chapters are required to hold 2 fundraisers every academic year, and it specifies that one of those fundraisers must benefit sending members to convention. So I know convention is only every other year, but convention is a large expense, and we hear from chapters over and over that convention is really expensive and it's really hard to send people. And we have been trying for the last few years to keep convention accessible, but also cut the amount of money that the sorority is spending out of our reserves on convention. So it's sort of a catch-22. We hear from members that you want to know where your dues go. And then we hear from members that you don't want to pay so much for convention. So we're trying to increase the value of convention. I think many people who attended convention this year in Fort Worth can speak to the increased value in terms of workshops and breakout sessions and keynote speakers and just the fun that we had at the awards gala on Saturday. So we are going to continue to do that to make convention more valuable for our members. And we also are asking our chapters to please meet the requirements listed in the Constitution and complete a fundraiser every single year for your convention savings. And we would ask that you try to send as many people to convention as possible. 2 is what you're required to send, but it's so much more fun when you have more people. So raise all the money that you can and send all the people you can. We would love to see that. As I mentioned at the beginning of this section, we are going to have more budgeting tips and a template is coming soon. We do know that creating and managing a chapter budget is a huge responsibility for the executive board and especially the chapter treasurer. Often chapters have a lot of money in their reserves and it's a big ask to ask you all to manage that. So we are going to be reaching out over this next semester and year to talk a little bit more in depth about your chapter accounts and how we can help you better budget the money and save the money and what our goals are with your chapter money. So we do have a short document on budgeting tips and tricks. And then again, we do have a budget template coming soon. And finally, financial assistance or financial resources. This may seem a little out of place to talk about chapter health, but I put it here because the sorority has provided paid contracted staff for people currently on the national chapter health team. So this is financial resources that the organization is putting into chapter health. So that's why I put it here. We have dedicated chapter health assistance personnel ready to help. This initiative started in June 2021. Coming out of COVID, we noticed that a lot of our existing chapters were really struggling, specifically with membership and recruitment. And so that's when we introduced this idea that we would label some chapters endangered, some at risk, and then others in good standing or healthy, I guess, because even endangered chapters are often in good standing by our constitutional standards. So we dedicated the financial resources to hire these 4 people. And additionally, we provided funding and created a budget for assisting chapters in person at retreats or through additional trainings. And then we also have funds available to help a chapter through a chapter assistance plan. So it's really important to mention that the sorority is, again, putting a lot of financial resources into chapter health and chapter health assistance. So we really want you all to utilize these resources as much as possible. All right, let's shift gears from financial resources to leadership and training resources. I think it was in late 2020 or mid 2020 when the board of directors updated the core values defining statements. These 6 core values have been our core values for a very long time. And they were just sort of our core values. That was it. That was how they were listed in the Constitution. They were just named, comma between each one, no additional information. And we started to realize that maybe there was some disconnect. I think a lot of this came up with COVID and we started to realize that there was some disconnect in our core values. And as chapters were transitioning through this global pandemic and a lot of things were virtual, we sort of missed the mark on what our core values were. And so we took some time to reevaluate and assign statements that define each of them. So for service, this also defines each area of service, the intent behind it. So we do have a training guide. We have a couple of documents that explain all this and break it down. Again, all this is available on OPhiA portal. The broken record, that is OPhiA portal. So I would strongly encourage you all as leaders of a chapter to really evaluate the core values and understand the intent behind each core value. And, there's some sayings on the national team that we use, like, does this promote friendship, leadership, and service? If it doesn't, then what are we doing here? And I do think that's a question you could ask yourself about all the core values. Like, are we rooted in service? Is that the core focus of our organization? Are we developing our members in leadership? Do we celebrate the diversity of our members through a spirit of inclusion? Do we foster strong bonds of sisterhood? If so, how? If not, how can we be doing that? Do we build traditions that withstand the test of time? And do we celebrate the education of our members? Do we provide additional education opportunities for them? What is it that we're doing in our chapter that really, really, you know, helps us like present as people who are living our core values. Sometimes when our chapters tell us that they have struggles with recruitment, I always think like, well, how are they presenting themselves? What is, when I go on their social media and I look through, like, when I look through this, do I get service? Do I get leadership? Do I get sisterhood? Does it feel like it is an organization with tradition? Does it feel diverse and inclusive? So the core values are extremely important. And I think all of you should definitely seek out additional core values training and review the information that has been made available. The main leadership resource that we have is the Leadership Development Program. You're probably already familiar with this. It is on OPhiA portal. It's available to all members. We currently have 6 modules, and we have 2 different leadership development programs. We have one for active members and one for alumni members. You can see in this screenshot that each of the modules has like a lot of articles you can read, activities you can do, and some reflections. I think the leadership development program is such a long-standing project of the sorority, and there's been so many people over the past maybe 10 years really working on improving this and getting these modules going, and it's awesome to see that come to life on OPA portal. It does reset every semester, so if you take it, we download it at the end of the semester to recognize the people who've completed all the modules. So definitely a great thing to do. This is a great leadership activity for chapters. You can do one of the modules and then have a little session discussing what you learned. We also have a ton of officer manuals and resources. You can see on the screen the chapter service director manual, and you can see it has so much information. It's in process of being updated, so you will see an updated chapter service director manual in the next few weeks. You can see a list of the manuals we currently have on the side of the screen, and then we have a lot of other like one-pager officer resources. We have a career development coordinator on the national team. Her name is Laura Craig, and she has put together a ton of career development resources. She actually works in career development at a university, so she's really familiar with the stage that you are at in planning for your future and career. So she has put a bunch of tips. You can see LinkedIn, resume, and general career advice. So it's a really wonderful resource to take advantage of. And we hope to plan a couple upcoming trainings with Laura on specific topics this semester. The chapter health team over the years has created a number of training workshops based on the needs of the chapters in the past. So a member of the team is happy to accommodate any needs that your chapter has. So definitely reach out to us for assistance. Some of these training workshops are going to be covered with specific chapter officers during the Officer Leadership Academy, but we do have some other ones like setting and managing expectations and boundaries, Chapter Management 101, which we kind of talked about. We have some retreat planning workshops. We have some policy training. There's a ton of stuff. So do not hesitate to reach out. And if it's a resource that you need that we don't have, we will try to create it or get the right person involved. Let's talk about service resources. Service is why we're all here, right? So we are improving our resources available in terms of service every single day. So this is not going to be comprehensive. So please pay attention to your emails. Alexa Forbes, our service program director, will be sharing updates in the coming weeks. First, we often get questions about where are the area of service guides. We used to have like 1-2 page guides for each area of service separately. Last year, we combined those into the chapter service director manual so that there weren't like so many things that you had to find. You could find it all in one place. So the service director manual contains information about each area of service at the end and the projects that we pre-approve within each area. It's really, really important. I'm going to keep saying this about the core values, that chapter officers and especially the service director understands the intent of each area of service and that the projects meet that intent. So this takes a lot of thought and planning. But I will say in the last year and a half, we have started to notice that many of our chapters are completing service projects that do not meet the intent of the specific area of service. I seem to find this is most common in members of the sorority, mental health, and president's project. So we have been trying to be more specific about some of these, but if you need help or have questions, you can reach out to Alexa at service@omegaphi.org. You may or may not know that a couple of semesters ago, we eliminated the need to get all of your projects approved because approving 27 or more chapter service projects, at least 6 projects for every chapter. You can do the math. That was a lot of service projects to review and approve. And because this team is volunteers, we decided to remove that large lift from a team of volunteers. However, we have noticed that the service program seems to have taken a little bit of a decline, so we are going to be monitoring projects as they are entered in OPhiA portal, and reach out to your chapter and make recommendations and suggestions for the future. So please, please, please help us help you not have to approve every single one of your projects. And please read through the area of service and the intent behind each one. Please ask questions when you're uncertain about a project. We really want to help. And we really don't want to micromanage your projects. We want to give you autonomy, but we want to teach you what fits into the intent. I mentioned the President's Project being an area of service that seems to be a little bit of a struggle in terms of quality projects. So this year and every year, the service team prepares a comprehensive guide to serving through the annual President's Project. And in this guide, we always try to include details about the project, like from the national president, why it was chosen, the intent behind the project, and any other pertinent information or definitions. And then we share some project ideas. So you can see that on the screen that this year, these are just 3 things that we're recommending. There's a lot of others, but these are some project ideas. So a book club, you can read books about the issues of human rights and hold a discussion. We've recommended some books. And then awareness campaigns on campus, like about human sex trafficking, the 13th Amendment, access to healthcare, access to clean water, affordable, accessible education, equal pay. There's like so many projects for this year's protecting human rights, and there's so many different human rights that can be considered. So this will be sent out, if it hasn't been already, to all service directors, and then it will also be available for review on OPhiA portal. National Service Week is something that we revitalized in 2021 for the first time since 2017. So National Service Week is the first full week in November. And typically we try to plan like a theme around National Service Week or an organization that we want to support. And then we provide chapters with a guide that walks them through what they can do to really publicize National Service Week in their chapter on their campus, how they can make it a success. So you can see a little screenshot of that guide. That's available on OPhiA portal, and we will refresh your memory as the semester moves on and we get to like September is probably when we'll start reaching out about National Service Week. And finally, for service, I did want to share that we do have a national service partnership with RAIN. It ends on November 1st, so it would be awesome to see our chapters support RAIN in these first couple months of this semester. You can always do a fundraiser, but you could also do an awareness campaign, and you can get a speaker from RAIN for free. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help. All right, let's talk about traditions resources. I think this is probably the most limited resource that we have. There is a traditions module in the leadership development program, so you can learn a little bit more about traditions in the sorority and creating your own. But I do want to share that we do offer all the song files and lyrics, and the news is that we recently re-recorded 3 songs, the national song, Pass It On, and Tribute to OPhiA. So we have brand new recordings from those. They've been uploaded to OPhiA portal. So you can download them there in MP3 format or MP3 format. If you need them in a different format, we do have them in a couple others, so let us know. And then all the other song files are still there. We haven't re-recorded all of them. We just did these first three. And then lyric sheets are available as well. Do you need help remembering how to lead a ceremony, or need to teach your new officers, or maybe you just need a refresher? You can download our ceremonies manual from OPA portal. And then coming soon, we have some event guides. So all different types of events that your chapter may need to host. Taylor is working on event planning guides for literally all different types of events that a chapter will plan. I wanted to share, have details for District Summit and the new standard operating procedure. If you have questions about that, please go to that SOP and stay tuned for more information. All right, we're almost there. Let's talk about communications resources. Branding and logos. Did you know that every chapter has their own custom logo of Omega Phi Alpha? It says your chapter under Omega Phi Alpha. And all of those logos and symbols that you would need are available for download on OPA portal. And we are more than happy to provide additional branding or logo items by request. So if your chapter has a Canva account and you need some like backgrounds or fonts or colors or any of the things, we will get it to you. You can just reach out to communications@omegaphialpha.org and we will fulfill your request. We do have updated brand guidelines. They're updated in 2021. They look like this in a PDF, and you can download it from OPA portal. Did you know that Omega Phi Alpha has been registered with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office since August 1993? That's something that I learned in preparing for this presentation. I didn't know that we had been registered for so long, but because we are registered, we control and license our name and logo. And we have a lot of information about best practices for apparel and merchandise orders. Because we are registered, you do have to order from a licensed vendor. We have a list of authorized licensed vendors. You can find that link on OPA portal. And we also just created shopophia.com, which is a marketplace of licensed vendors that have like already designed Omega Phi Alpha apparel. So check that out. Apparel, accessories, everything makes it really easy. I also want to say here when we talk about the merchandise guide, that it seems that a lot of chapters are not familiar with how licensed vendors will create custom designs for you within the brand guidelines. So if you're working on designing a shirt and you're like, I don't know, will they approve this? Will they not? You actually can skip the whole design process and you can just go to a licensed vendor like South by Sea and maybe University Tees or two that I'm familiar with. And they have designers in-house who will design something custom for you. So don't spend too much time designing your t-shirts. I know it can be fun, but if you found something online that you really like, you could send that to one of those companies and ask them to modify it to fit Omega Phi Alpha's brand standards. So something to think about. And the final communications topic is blogs. We just want to take this time to say that any member can write blogs and submit them for consideration on the national website. You can use this link. I also believe this link can be found on OPA portal. So we encourage all of our members to write content for the blog. We'd love to see chapter service project updates and recaps, recruitment stories, member spotlights, what's on your mind. We have a lot of members who do utilize this to share some thoughts and updates. So if you're looking for some information, the blog is also a resource in that way. There is tons of information on the blog. We have heavily utilized the blog function of our website for the past 2 years. So there's tons of information there. Somebody recently was asking me about the structure. There's a whole blog that talks about the organizational structure. There's a blog that talks about the legislation at convention. There's a blog that talks all about the foundation. there's blogs for everything. So scroll back through that if you're looking for some information. Okay, finally, let's talk about the national team and what resources are available to you on the national team. But first, let's just talk about how this is structured. So you can see here, this is the general organizational structure. Members are first, and then the members hold the foundation and the board of directors accountable. Then we have the managing director, myself, under the board of directors. Then we have directors and managers and coordinators and specialists. So the board of directors has 5 members: the national president, the vice president of finance, vice president of communications, vice president of programs, and vice president of lifetime membership. We do have some paid contractors. We've kind of talked about this. The managing director is a paid contractor. We have our national office administrator, Virginia. We have a chapter health manager, Taylor. And then we have chapter health specialists, Stormy, April, and Jenna. But the majority of our team are volunteers. So the board of directors are all volunteer. And then we have this volunteer leadership team. So we have the National Standards Board director, the National Events director, program director. Every single person you see on this screen is a volunteer. So our organization literally could not function without the support of volunteers. So be kind when you're reaching out to people on the national team. Give them some grace. They are volunteers. They will get back to you. The people in pink are positions that are project-based and don't have like a minimum term length. They have specific things that they accomplish in their role. And then we have some other positions. We have a legal advisor, we have a legislation committee coordinator, we have a nomination committee coordinator. Our national president oversees all of these positions. And then our vice president of finance oversees 2 additional contracted positions. We have a bookkeeper who reconciles our bank monthly, our accounts monthly in QuickBooks. And then we have a CPA who prepares our tax return. The national team is made up of the board of directors and the operational leadership team. So that's a term that you hear us say is like, oh, the national team, that's who we're talking about. And most people on the national level that you all will interact with are on the operational leadership team. We also call that the OLT. And the main chapter contact is your CSC email. So we no longer have CSCs in the volunteer capacity that we used to have. We do still use these emails for chapters to communicate with the appropriate person. So if you have a chapter health specialist, then that email will go to the chapter health specialist assigned to your chapter. And once they reach out to you, you can also just use their direct email. And then you can always reach out to chapterhealth@omegaphi.org. If you're watching the recording of this and you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Alyssa, at managingdirector@omegaphi.org, or you can reach out to Taylor, chapterhealth@omegaphi.org. We can hopefully answer any of your questions that you have about additional resources. And I do just want to take a minute to say that if you have any ideas about resources that we should make available for chapters, or you see a gap in the resources, we love hearing from our members and getting that direct feedback. So please don't hesitate to reach out and let us know and just say, hey, I think we need a workshop on this. We would love to hear from you, and that's what we're here for ultimately, is to improve the leadership of our members and improve the health of our chapters. So however we can do that, we are more than willing to do. Thanks for your time, and we look forward to working with you over the next 2 semesters.